Hello everyone, welcome back again to the Education Diary, day number 1 of the introduction to the Linux operating system. My name is Gurpreet and I'm the basic instructor at the Education Diary for the IT systems. It can be for cybersecurity or for big data or for the Linux operating system. So today we are going to be having a very first session of the webinar based on the Linux. Now, as usual, some of you have already worked on different operating systems. So if you know we are having mobile or the mobile phones which are having the operating systems like Android or iOS. In the previous 10 years before, we were having the operating systems like Symbian based, which were Japanese operating systems. We were having different Chinese companies and their Chinese operating systems past 10 years back. But coming to the present, we are having tons and tons of different operating systems. It can be Android based, it can be iOS based, it can be Linux based, it can be Debian based, it can be Ubuntu. So of course Debian and Ubuntu are actually the part of Linux, but they are having some differences when you're going to be working on these operating systems. Apart from these operating systems, we have to also consider that there are some operating systems which we can make, right? So if you're having the open source code like in the form of Linux, so Linux is having the open source. So there are tons and tons of developers who basically enhance or make or customize the operating systems and update it into the repository of all these operating systems. So if you want to download Kali Linux, which is one of a very famous operating system in the field of Linux or in the field of cybersecurity, so the Kali Linux basically gets updated in 2 or 3 months every time. So the open source code gives us the independency to the developers so that they can customize their own Linux operating system. They can customize the network tools. They can customize various different options like storage, file system management, or some tools if they want to install. So that is something which is pretty good into the Linux. Now, personally, I use Mac operating system, which is my main operating system. But here you can see that I'm having the Ubuntu, which is a virtual operating system. Now the power and the independency of the virtual operating system is that suppose that if any type of hacking you want to perform, of any type of bug bounty you want to perform into these operating systems, so you can try onto these virtual operating system. Now the best part is, like we are having in cybersecurity, we are having some different form of viruses, malware, different type of programs which we want to run. So we cannot run those programs onto our main operating system, which is Mac OS in this case. Now the main operating system is also known as the host operating system, which is our, of course, the Mac OS in this case. Now we are using the virtual operating system into my main Mac OS. I'm using a software Parallels, which is one of a very famous software into the Mac operating system. But if you're using Windows, you can go for the virtual box, or you can go for your VMware, which again give you the 30 days free trial. But if you want to go with the license one, you can take 1 year license. I'm using Parallel, so it is basically costing me around 6,000 to 6,500 Indian currency for 1 year. Now if you're owning a business, so this amount can exceed, but if you're individual, so you can basically get 1 year of license in around 6,500 Indian currency or 7,000 Indian currency. So this is my Ubuntu. By the way, I can also go and can install more and more operating system into the Parallels. Now Parallels is a software which can be downloaded only on the Mac operating system. Well, by the way, for the Windows, you can go and download for VirtualBox or VMware. You can go and you can check out how to install the operating systems into these softwares. It's very easy. For the Parallels on the Mac, it's much more easy. It's like 90% more easy when it's compared with installing on the Windows operating system. So as usual, when you have your Parallels, so you can just select any operating system and it will automatically install onto your Mac operating system. By the way, if I want, I can switch from this operating system to my main operating system anytime, whenever I want. So yeah, I'm having 2 users right now into my Ubuntu. As I told you that Linux is having multiple operating system. It can be Debian based or it can be Ubuntu based. Right, so Ubuntu based operating systems can be like something Fedora, or we are having the XFC Linux, we are having Dolphin operating system. So there are tons and tons of examples which you can take. For the Debian based, we are having Kali Linux, Parrot operating system, we are having like Raspberry Pi operating system, which are based on the Debian. Right, so let's have the introduction to the Ubuntu. Now it's very important that you should be having skills on working on different Linux operating system. It can be Red Hat operating system, CentOS, or it can be Fedora, it can be Windows, it can be Mac. So if you are having the skills in using multiple operating systems, so there is high chance that you are going to be having much more, we can say, efficiency in getting a job, right? You can basically get a good job. You can get a really good job into the IT sector if you're having skills into different operating systems on how you can use that. So as usual, I told you, try to have a very good command on Windows, try to have really good command on Linux operating system, not only on Ubuntu, but as I told, CentOS, Red Hat Linux, Fedora Linux, Dolphin operating system, Raspberry Pi. We are going to be having like Arduino operating systems. So if you are going to be working on these operating systems, it's really going to be giving you a really good set of skills which you can perform into the IT industry. Now we are going to be logging into my Parallels user. If you want, I can also log in into the Hadoop, which is the part of the big data. I created a series time back, so I can basically log in into that user as well, but this is my normal user in which I can log in, and it's something we can start with. So if I'm going to be writing up the password, so it is not visible. So once basically I enter into my operating system, so let's wait. So once you are having the Ubuntu, you are going to be having this kind of interface. You can go to the next, or if you want to install, you can install. Now at this position, this is just going to be having the screen, which is going to be telling you to help improve the Ubuntu performances or any kind of patches. Now I can simply go on to the next and it's going to be finished. Now, as usual, these are some of the folders which will be available. Don't delete these folders because these are going to be having some of the important files in order to execute your Ubuntu or the Linux operating system. In Linux, one of the very best thing is that it is much more secure than the Windows operating system, because on Windows, the attacks or the hackings can be performed really easily. But onto the Linux operating system, there are not many options available. Like the Linux is basically based on the command line interface. That means 90% of the work on Linux is being done by the terminal. So it is having a very less GUI softwares which you can use. You cannot even play games into the Linux operating system. Now you can, but it is going to be having lots and lots of configurations. But Linux is not going to be used for playing games, right? So Linux is basically used in the form of security and privacy, and in the field of cyber security, as you can say. So this is actually the first display here you are going to be getting. Now what I can go is I can go to the very first thing whenever you are having the Linux is going to be search for the terminal, right? So you can just open up the terminal. This is going to be the very first important thing which you need to consider, is to update and upgrade your Ubuntu operating system. I can just try to increase the font size. Let me just try. Yep. So I think so this is much better. So now here you can see my terminal. So the very first thing is going to update and upgrade your Linux operating system. It can be Ubuntu, it can be Kali, it really doesn't matter, right? So it's Linux, so you have to update it. And whenever you turn on your Linux operating system, make sure to update and upgrade it daily, because daily there are some new patches, new security patches, or new update patches for the softwares which are pre-installed into your operating system. So make sure to update and upgrade your operating system every time you turn it on. So the very first command which we can go is for the sudo bash. Now sudo bash is something which is a very basic command. Right now here you can see that I am in the user with the name Parallels. So right now I am not into the admin user, I am into a normal user. So suppose if I want the power, if I want to use the power of Ubuntu in the 100%, so I have to log in into the admin user. So right now I am in the user Parallels, but suppose if I want to get the full power of the Ubuntu, so I have to go and log in into the admin. So for this command, you can go for sudo bash. Sometimes people also go for sudo su. Right, so sudo is basically the very first word tells you that yes, we want to log in into the main admin panel. So this is going to be telling to the terminal that we want to log in into the admin panel. But bash is something which is the name of the terminal. Now some people have installed bash in their Linux, but 99% of the cases you're having bash. All right, so this terminal name is bash. Some people are also having ZSH. So this is another form of terminal which you can actually install. We are going to be working on how to install some different packages, but suppose 99% if you're having your Linux, so you will be having the bash as your default terminal. So I'm simply going to be having bash here, and once I hit enter, so it is going to be asking for the password in order to log in into the admin panel. Now here the things are pretty interesting. Like suppose if you don't know the password, then you can't you're not able to do anything, right? You can't do anything. What the best thing is, like suppose if any hacker wants to gain access of this operating system, they have to enter into the admin panel in order to use or in order to download or upload any of the files from this OS into their computer, or from their computer if they want to upload in this operating system. So in order to do all these activities, they should know the admin password. Now here I'm simply going to be writing up the password. Now the password is not visible, you just need to write, and it is not going to be visible for sure once you hit enter. So here now you can see that I'm having the user with the name root. So as you can see that previously it was parallels, but now it is root, which actually tells that right now I am into the admin panel and I'm having the full 100% authority of using this operating system as depending onto me, right? So I can download any packages, I can upload any packages, I can delete some files, I can execute, I can write some files. So everything I can do into this admin panel. But in the parallels, I can like read the files, I cannot delete it, I cannot make it. So that is something which is the power of root. All right, so if you don't know the password, so there are also certain ways into cybersecurity, that is the dictionary attack, brute force attack, or there are some certain type of attacks which we can perform in order to gain the password for the admin. But that is something not sure. It is something which depends. If the person is having a very normal password here, so like 1234556, so it's easy to hack or to bypass these kind of passwords. But if a user is having a really hard password, so it is something really hard to that hack. Now, the best part of the Ubuntu operating systems is that these operating systems are used in the big companies. Like it can be used in Infosys, it can be used in TCS, it can be used in Apple, or it can be used in Google, anywhere. So in the major big companies, they are basically using the Linux server, which is based on the Linux operating system as usual. So by time to time, when we are going to be forwarding with such kind of amazing things, we are going to be also working on the Windows server operating system, like 2012 R2, Windows Server 2016 R2, Windows Server 2019 R2, which are the server based operating system. And we will be understanding how can we want work on these operating systems, which is for sure kind of like hard for configurations, because server based operating systems are really hard to work on and configure on. Apart from that, this is something, the very first command which you learned is the sudo bash command. It's really awesome, but it is just giving you an ideology, right? If you're really new to Linux, this series of webinar is going to be really helping for you in order to start with the Linux operating system. It's going to be really easy, not going to be very difficult, but still, if you have any problem or doubts, make sure to comment so that I can see and I can reply for your these questions, right? So good evening, OP Gaming. Apart from that, we are going to be having the next command, which is totally going to be, now these commands are going to be very basic, right? We are having tons and tons of very long form commands, but I'm not going with that. I'm going to be going with the very basic commands, which are easy to learn, easy to remember. Now the very important thing you can see here is that after the double colon, we are having the home / parallels. Now this is the place we are here. Like suppose if I want to check where am I in this operating system, right? So you have to understand that in Linux, these things actually tell you that the name of the folder. So we are inside home, and inside home there is another folder with the name parallels, right? So this actually tell you that we are inside home, right? And inside home there is another folder with the name parallels, and we are inside the parallels. So in Linux, that is something which is really important to understand. It's like a topology. It is kind of like a graph, right? So we will be understanding. So suppose if I go with who am I, now this is the very first command, which is going to be telling you that what is the name of the user. Now suppose in a server in a Ubuntu operating system, you're having tens or 15s of different users, right? So you can just write this command to check for the main user. So you can see that right now I'm logged in as a root, so it is showing me the root. So who am I actually tells you that what is the name of user in that particular field, right? A very basic command. the next command is going to be ls. Now, once if I write ls, so here the full form of ls is basically list. So it is going to tell that inside the parallels folder, by the way, in the Linux, we say directory. We don't say folder, right? We have files and directories into the Linux. We don't have files and folders. Of course, we can say folders, but what we want to work, of course, we are working in the Linux, so you should be having habit of different words or phrases whenever we speak. So we can say that we are inside the parallels directory or folder for right now, and inside this parallels directory we are having some multiple different directories, right? So you can see that we are having templates, we are having videos, we are having snap, this is the downloads, desktop, documents. So we are having multiple different directories into this parallels directory. All right, so suppose now this was the very first command. Next is that ls-l. Now list, and again it's going to be giving you a list into a vertical form. So now here you can see that we are having these things, and when it was being created, you know that when, so March 23 was the last time when it was being created. So it's a long time, right? So I basically installed Ubuntu on March 23, but it is just telling you that on which date this particular directory has been created, at what time it was being created, right? So here is something which is pretty important. Here you can see that there are total is 36 files inside these directories. So overall there are going to be 36 things into this directory. Apart from that, we are going to be having this particular thing, which is going to be reading, writing, and executing, right? Which is really, really important. Now, this particular thing actually shows you that what a directory can take place. Now, suppose if I'm logged in as a root, so I can read, means I can check the directory, I can rename the directory, I can add anything, I can delete anything. So the short form of reading, writing, or executing is something in the form of drw xr, xr, and x. So this is basically read, this is something write, and this is basically execute, right? So we have different permissions into different directories. So here, as you can see that for the snap, we are not having the permissions for reading, writing, or executing. We are not having any permissions in this particular directory. So that is something really important to see. So we can change the permissions, right? In the future, we are going to be checking if we want to change the permission so that we can read, write, execute, and whatever if we want, we can, right? So this is something the next or the third command you can go with, or the fourth command you can go with. So we were having sudo bash, who am I, ls-l. So it is just giving you a very basic information about the directories. It can be read, write, or execute. Now the best, now the best part of this is we can also go with ls-ll, we can go with ls-lx. So if I'm going to do this, it is also going to be giving the same exactly like ls. So there is nothing new in this, but people do have habit of using these kind of different commands. Now here you can see that ls-ll is something somehow working like this. So it is kind of like same, right? But sometimes in the examinations, like in the CompTIA or in the CEH examinations, or like there are multiple certifications and examinations you can go with. So sometimes there are options given like this. So you don't need to get confused. Of course, you have to practice the commands on the daily basis so that you can understand what the commands are. But somehow these are similar commands, so don't worry in that, right? So this was the very basic command, which was ls. Now, as usual, I told you that right now we are in the parallels directory. But what if I want to go to home directory, like one step back? As I told you that parallels is inside the home directory, and inside the parallels we are having these directories, which is desktop, documents, downloads. Like suppose if I want to go out of this directory one step before, which means I want to go into home directory. So I can go with cd space dot dot, like 2 times if you put dot. So now you can see that right now I am in home directory. Now you cannot see parallels. So right now I am at home, right? So now in home, if I want to check how many different directories are there, once again I can go with ls. So as usual, as I put ls, so here you can see you are going to be having Hadoop and parallels written here. So that means we are having 2 directories inside the home directory, right? Simple, pretty easy. Now let's go inside the parallels again. What if I want to go into the parallels, right? Now previously we just get out of the parallels, we came into the home. Now what if I want to go inside the parallels again, which is available into the home directory? So I can write cd parallels, right? hit enter. So now here you can see I am in parallels again. So the cd is something which basically tells you, all right, I want to go into this directory, right? So this cd basically tells you the changing of the current directory. So suppose in parallels also we are having templates, videos, desktop documents. What if I want to go into the desktop? Let's go with cd and desktop, right? So cd desktop. Now here you can see I am inside the desktop. What are different things into the desktop? Once again we will use ls, so it will show us the desktop items. So here also you can see we are having home in the desktop, we are having parallel shared folder here. So it is basically telling you that yes, we are having two directories into the desktop, right? So pretty easy, pretty normal, not very difficult. Now the next command which we can understand is basically clearing of the terminal. That means the terminal is having lots of commands right now, lots of things. What I can do is I can simply write clear. So it is actually going to clear up the screen, right? All right. Now the important thing which I told you whenever we are turning on the Linux is something updating and upgrading the Linux, right? Which was very first important thing. So in order to do this, we are basically having the command apt get update and upgrade space dash y. So the y is actually telling you the full, all right? Y actually means the full operating system should be updated and upgraded. But if you want to do it individually, you can simply write apt get update. Once it is updated, you can change the command for apt get upgrade. Now update means whatever the softwares are having right now, whatever the operating systems configurations are there right now, you are going to be updating that. Upgrade means like if a new version of the operating system is available, you are going to be upgrading from the current version to the new operating version. So that is something which is really important to understand. All right, so let's try and run the command apt get update. So it's going to be taking some time. So here you can see that it is 23%, 38%, 62%. It is basically updating your packages or operating system. Now you can see that it was only around 8 MB, right? 8 MB of the update was there and it's done. Sometimes if you get error in the configuration, so we have to check for the configurations what can be the errors or the possibilities in getting up these errors. Now after that I can go for apt get upgrade, right? But right now I'm not going for this because it will be taking a lot of time in this, right? It can be take almost half an hour, and after that you have to restart your operating system and that's it, right? But you can go with this command, it's really important, but I'm not going with that, otherwise it's going to be taking a lot of time. It can take a lot of time because since 1 month I'm not using the Ubuntu operating system for sure, right? So once again I'm going to be clearing up the terminal by using the command clear. All right, pretty easy. So now suppose if I want to check in which directory I am, so I can simply use the command pwd, right? So which actually tells you that in which current directory I am. So previously, if you remember, we were having who am I, which was telling what was the name of the user. But pwd basically tells us in which directory we are. So we are inside home and parallels. Now suppose if I go onto the cd desktop, right? So if I'm going to be enter pwd, so now you can see that we are inside home, and inside home we are inside parallels, and inside the parallels we are inside the desktop, right? Pretty easy, not very difficult. Again, we are going to be clearing. Now in the desktop, right now we are where? We are at the desktop. What if I want to make a new directory or a new folder on the desktop? So on the desktop, you can see I'm only having home here and a parallel shared folder. So there are only two folders. But what if I want to make a new folder? So what I can do is I can go with the command mkdir, which is the make directory, and let's take the name anything. It can be education diary for an example. Let's take this thing. So once if I hit enter, so there is going to be a new folder or a new directory on where? Desktop. So you have to remember your position. If you want to make a new directory in parallel, so first of all you have to go into parallels, cd space dot, right? So you will be in parallels, then you are going to be using this command in order to make the directory. So you have to remember your place where you are. It is going to be making the configurations there. If I hit enter, so you can see that there is a new directory with the name education diary available here. Once again, if I want to go into this directory, so I can go with cd education diary. Of course, if I'm going to do ls, so there is nothing in this directory right now, so that's why it doesn't show anything. Let's go back to desktop, right? So let's go and do clear. Now if I want to delete this directory, of course, if I make a directory, so that was mkdir. If I want to delete this directory, so I can go with rm space -rf and education diary, right? So RM basically means remove, and RF basically means forcefully, right? So you want to remove forcefully this directory. As soon as I hit enter, so you can see that the directory basically vanished, right? So this is something which is important. You can use this command for deleting the file also. All right. Now, if I want to make a file, previously we checked out mkdir for making the directory, but what if I want to make a file? So for that, I can use a command touch. Again, I want to make a file. It can be education diary .txt. So you have to give an extension. If it's a Python file, if it's a C file, if it's that C++ file or any kind of file. So right now I'm having text file, so I'm going to be giving the extension .txt. As soon as I hit enter, so now you can see that there is an education diary.txt file. All right. So again, if I'm going to be doing rm-rf and education diary.txt, so it will be removed. It will be deleted, right? So let's make a file again, touch education diary, or let's take ed diary because it's like much more short form txt. All right, so here is eddiary.txt, which is being made on the desktop. Now, what if I want to write anything in this text file? Now, the very first thing is you can go into the desktop, you can double click on this, and this is the GUI interface. You can write anything here, right? And once you are done, you can go and you can click on save. But here you can see that this is something read only. All right, that means you cannot edit this file anyway, anyhow. Even though you are into the admin right now, but still you are not having the power to change the permissions, which is to write and execute. So that's why the option save is not available. So what we can do is we can simply use the terminal, right? Close without saving. Now here I can go and I can simply write vi, and let's take eddiary.txt. Now the vi command is actually going to be giving you authority to write anything on the terminal and save into the txt file. Once if I hit enter, so the vi is not working here in the Ubuntu because maybe I hadn't upgraded my operating system. So let's go with gedit if it's possible, because this is also one of a command which we can use. And here you can see that gedit basically worked. Once again, I can write hello, I am here. So I can, now here you can see I'm having the option save. Now there is no read only option coming, so I can simply click on save, and that's it, right? So if I'm going to be closing this now, and if I'm going to be opening it again, so here you can see that my text is here, hello, I am here, right? So now if I want to, first of all, it's clear. Now if I want to read what it what is written inside this txt file without opening the txt file, I can use the terminal by the command cat, and after that I'm going to be giving the name of the file. So the cat command actually gives you the authority to check whatever it is written inside that file, all right, not folder. So whenever I'm saying file, so you have to always consider about directories, files, and something like this, right? So once I hit enter, so here you can see in the terminal only I can see hello, I am here, right? So that's the basically power of cat. Now once again, let's remove this diary.txt. By the way, before removing, you can see that we were not having permission, right? Right now also, if I'm going to be double clicking on this, not using gedit command, but here also you can see that the read only is something which is giving us here. Let's change the permission of this. So what we can do is let's go with ls-l. So here you can see that we are having read, and read permission. So we are not having writing or executing permission. So what we can do is we can go for chmod 777, and after that I'm going to be giving the name of the text. So chmod is something which basically helps in changing of the permission. 777 is something used for reading, writing, and executing. Now 777, how it comes, we are having certain numbers. We can take 653, 354, something like this. So we are having certain combinations which we can take into these 3 digits, 3 places. We are going to be discussing this later on, but here it's just a common command in order to give the full permission to that directory or to that file. So as soon as I hit enter, and if I'm going to do ls-l, so now previously you can see that this was in the white color, but now this is in the green color, which actually shows. And here also you can see that previously it was only read, 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 but right now here it is read, write, execute, read, write, execute, read, write, execute. So if I'm going to be now double clicking on this, so you can see that I'm having the save option coming and the read only option has been gone. All right, so that is something the chmod command can be used in order to give the permissions to your file or to your directories. Now if you want to lock any of your directory, like suppose if I want to lock the home folder, so I can use chmod 000 or 111 to lock the home folder. That means a person can go into home, but he or she cannot delete or upload or can make any file in that particular folder, right? So that is something which we can do. Now apart from that, like suppose if I want to basically copy anything, right? So suppose we are having this txt file and I want to copy this from desktop and I want to paste this into the Parallels, right? So what we can do is we can use cp command, which is basically for copying, and after this we are going to be giving a space, name of the file which we want to copy, space / home in Parallels, right? So you can write all the alphabets if you want, but I basically use tab key. So I basically just write the starting 1 or 2 letters and I just press on tab. So the tab key automatically recognizes what I want to go in. So once if I hit enter, now you can see there is nothing. But if I go back to the Parallels folder and if I do ls-l, so here you can see that I am having the edit.txt, and you can see it is being take position on 17 April on 9 p.m. right? So that is something which is important to understand. Now let's go to the desktop again. Okay, before that let's delete the file from here, from the Parallels. Let's go to the desktop, let's clear ls-l, right? So this is something which is kind of like telling you about the very basic commands which we can go with, right? After this we are going to be having some important commands like for file management. As usual, we saw like mkdir for making directory, rm-rf for removing a directory or removing a file, touch command for making a file, chmod for changing up the permission, cp command for copying. But what if I want to cut? What if I want to move, right? Not copy. So we can go with mv. So we are going to be having mv home Parallels, hit enter. So now you can see that it basically disappeared. And if I go into the Parallels, ls-l, so now it is basically here. All right, so here you can see that these type of commands you can use. Now let's move again from this directory to home, Parallels, and desktop. All right, so it basically came back again to the desktop. Let's clear up the screen, right? So this was pretty easy, not very difficult. Now if I want to do something which is basically for checking up the networking things, right? For the IP, what is the IP of my operating system, which is really important. So we are having the command ipconfig, but that is basically in the Windows. So we are having in Linux ifconfig, right? So in Linux, you can use the command ifconfig to check the IP addresses of your operating system. So this is my virtual IP right now. If you want to see 10.211.55.55, of course the broadcast is this. Now this is not my real IP address. Of course, I'm not sharing with you the real IP address. This is something, the virtual IP address based on my Parallels operating system. So it's something not really important, but you always have to consider that you cannot share your IP address, right? Because this is something a private IP address. This is not a public, this is a private IP address. But if you're using as a main operating system, then you are not permitted. Or of course, this is just a suggestion that never share your private IP addresses whenever you are using in your main operating system. Right now I'm using in a virtual operating system, so it doesn't really matter what is my IP address. So sometimes it changes also, so it doesn't really matter. All right, so I can simply go for clear. Now, like suppose if I want to install anything, like suppose if I just want to install any package. What do you mean by the word package? Like suppose there is a package with the name nmap. Let's hit enter. So here you can see that now nmap is kind of like a software, right? In the terms of Windows, we can say software, but in the terms of Linux, we can say this is a package, right? It is not a software. So if I want to install this package, so I'm again going to be taking apt get install nmap. Now we are having tons and tons of different packages or softwares only for Linux. So nmap cannot be installed on Windows, but there is a software with the name ZenMap, which is a GUI. Now nmap, again, it's a CLI interface or a command line interface software. That means once I install this, I have to work on the terminal only in order to use this particular tool. Now it's a very famous tool. If you're familiar with this, it's basically used in cybersecurity, and it's a really great software. But in the terms of Linux, we don't say software, we say package. So once if I hit enter, so now you can see after this we are going to be having 26 MB of the additional disk space are going to be taking place. Let's go and type on Y. That means yes, we want to continue. Once if I click on Y, it is going to be downloading the package. It is going to take some time. Now, depending on the package size, it is not a very, we can say, heavy software, right? So it's a very normal software. So it's basically installed. Now, if I clear and I can just write nmap, so here you can see it is giving me some examples how I can use nmap. That means the software or the package is successfully installed, right? So if I go and check that what is the use of this, so I can simply write man nmap. So this is simply going to be telling me, but in this it is not basically used. You will still need to ensure, so there is no command with the name man. So let's try and install apt get install man. Right, so it's already installed, but let it be. We just wanted to do nmap and it is basically installed. Now what if I want to check and use this software or the package inside my Ubuntu? I can simply write the name of the package which we installed, which was nmap, right? And after that, let's take the IP address. If I want to check for the IP address, right? So what was the IP address? Let's copy that first of all. So this was my IP address. Let's copy this. And after that, I'm going to be using nmap dash, let's take this IP address only. Let's write the IP address 10.211.55.55. So this package is basically used to scan the open ports in my computer, in my operating system, right? So this basically package is used in cybersecurity to check for the weaknesses or vulnerabilities in a network or in an operating system. So right now I'm just running it on my own IP address, on my own terminal, on my own operating system. By the way, using of nmap is not like illegal, but it is also not permitted to use on any IP address, right? So if you get IP address of Google, or if you get IP address of any other, you can say online device, so using nmap is strictly prohibited. That means using nmap without taking the permission of the owner is something illegal, and the person can actually case a file on you if they want. So that's why I'm using the nmap on my own IP address, because I'm having the IP address in my main operating system. If I hit enter, so it is going to take some time, and that's it. It basically tell me that there is a port which is the SSH and it is basically open, and the port number is 22. So this example basically tells you how we can use a package, right? So we can just write the name of package and we can just start using it. So of course, if I write nmap, so here you can see we are having examples on how you can use this, right? So that is something you will be getting in the form of that. Like suppose there is a very great software which is the name Wireshark, right? So if you are familiar with this software, let me know. And it is a very heavy software and it is a GUI interface software. Once I install this, you can see it is going to take around 200 MB. Let's try this and let's see if it can be installed pretty fast. So the speed of internet is really, really good today. So around 20 seconds, 19 seconds. All right. So once it is going to be installed, now should non-super users be able to capture packets? So as usual, we are in the root user. We don't want this, only we want to scan for the networks and everything. So I think so it's installed successfully. All right. Now what I can do is I can simply write Wireshark and that's it. As soon as I hit enter, so it is going to be opening a GUI interface. And this is going to be the interface of Wireshark. As usual, my IP address is on this port. So I can click here, double click on this. And this is the main interface of the Wireshark. Right now, what I can do is I can simply stop here, right? I can go here again, double click on this. Now you can not see anything here, right? This actually screen tells you what are the requests my computer is sending to the internet and what I'm getting the request from the internet. So suppose if I just open a Firefox, and so you can see that right now there is nothing, no activity here going on, and suddenly the activity started. So what I can do is I can simply go to the Google, right? So as soon as I click on Google, in the back side you can see that there are so many packets going on, coming, going, coming. So this is actually telling that yes, my computer has requested a website, and what is the IP address of that website, and once the request has been received, what basically my operating system is getting, right? So this is a very powerful tool. Now this is having a separate course. If you want, you can contact to the education diary, but this is something, a software which is having a really deep course, really deep understanding, because you are having tons and tons of options in using this software. So you can basically take this software as a learning for 1 or 2 months. It is going to really take 1 or 2 months for learning of this software. But yeah, this is something, just an activity, just an example to showcase that how easy it is to that install any package and use that package. Now if I want to stop, I can go here again, I can simply click on this red, and the software has been stopped. Now I can also search for the protocols here, like suppose if I write HTTP here and if I hit enter, so these are only the port which are based on HTTP, right? Or we can say HTTPS. As usual, if I want to go and change the port number to TCP, so here you are going to be having the ports which are only based on TCP. Now the port is itself is a quite SSH. If you remember, when we used nmap on my operating system, so there was a port open with the name SSH. But right now, by using the Google website, whenever I'm sending any request to the Google, even I just searched for the Google, right? I didn't search any further, but SSH, there is no port open onto the Google website. So this is actually something which is telling you. All right, so I hope so that you really enjoyed this particular session, and I believe so that if you're having so many doubts or questions, you can simply ask to the education diary. You can just comment down, you can just send email, and we will be meeting tomorrow, right, on the introduction to Linux.